Cupping really is the key protocol to ensure consistency in every batch. So I'm trying to stay away from the darker, beyond second crack kind of profile. We're tracking it like first crack and then a few minutes of development time to ensure consistency in every batch. So what that involves is a team of myself, a head of quality, and a head of roasting, that's Chatura and Frank. So three of us will carry out the cupping for every single batch that's roasted at the roastery. How do I even use this machine? How to even roast coffee?
Hi Rinosh, can you take us back to your first roast here? What was going through your mind the first time you fired up this machine?
Good morning. First thing that went through my mind was like, how do I even use this machine? How to even roast coffee? So really we didn't have a real understanding of the specific mechanics of how to roast coffee. I'm talking like over a decade ago or 10 years ago. There was no proper resources available. There was no like comparator for us. So it was a lot about self-learning, looking online and then traveling to roasteries across the world, speaking to peers in the industry, and then really like self-taught ourselves on how to roast them. That's really how the journey began. But of course, we have come a long way now. We run SCA standards on roasting. We have running Artisan and Cropster softwares to ensure consistency. We've come a long way, but the start was very self-learning and then figuring it out on our own, essentially.
What does this roastery mean to you personally beyond the machines and beans?
I think it's not just about coffee roasting, it's more like an expression of what Sri Lankan coffee can be. I mean, we feel like we are responsible for showcasing the best potential of Sri Lankan coffee, and using this roastery is like a tool for us to create that artisan blend or a profile roast or a specialty coffee blend, which really represents the best of what Sri Lankan coffee can be. And that is really what this roastery stands for in my view.
So what happens here from the moment the green bean arrives to when it leaves in a bag? I mean, walk us through your process.
Actually, there's a whole step before the beans arrive here. We actually visit the farmers first. We understand where the plants are, when it's plucked, the quality of the raw beans, the samples at the farmer level, and then we talk to the farmer and explain how to process the coffee to a certain standard. And once it's up to a certain standard, then that batch comes to our facility. So the first thing we do is we take a sample out, we draw a sample, we have a nucleus linked sample roaster, we do a sample roast to understand the potential of the bean. So we'll try a lighter roast, a darker roast, a longer development time, short development time, with so many different variables to understand what the best recipe is for that particular bean. After that, we do our first batch roasting, try to match the sample roast to the batch roast. And after that, we will try to consistently match that roast to what we kind of establish as our benchmark. And then once that's completed, we will do a cupping cycle to make sure we score every single batch which comes out of the roaster to make sure it's up to our 80 plus score, 83 plus score, make sure the consistency there in terms of scoring as per SCA. Once that's approved, then it goes into blending, grinding, and then packing, and so on and so forth. That's roughly how the cycle goes. But there are so many different loops within that. For example, to take one area of quality process consistency, our QC team will check the moisture content, the color, the grind size, so many variables they check to ensure consistency. There are so many mini processes within the larger cycle, but this is overall how it works.
When you're roasting, what are you listening for, smelling for, watching for? What are the signs that tell you this is it?
So it's very visual and auditory. So one of the first things you're looking at is the color changing sequence of the coffee. So coffee is initially green. So you start roasting, the drying stage, it turns to a bit like a light, like a peanut color. And then it goes to a cinnamon kind of stage. And then milk chocolate and dark chocolate. That's kind of how the color sequence looks. So you're looking out for the color sequence at a particular time at a particular temperature. But the key difference, what to look out for, is the first crack. It's like the popping sound. So that really indicates where the roast is in its cycle, and that really gives you a gauge on where the roast will end up at. So that's like the key sound auditory kind of cue we take. But beyond that, it's the color we look at. So it's a multiple parameters we look at in the roast cycle. So other than that, you have the computer which gives us the time, the temperature, the airflow level, the burner level, so many parameters we control to make sure the roast is consistent. So, but on a physical perspective, it's color and sound, and a little bit of smell also. You can look at like a peanut or like a light kind of fragrances you look at whilst roasting as well. That also gives you a cue on how the roast is evolving.
That's great. But every roaster has a personal touch. How would someone know they are drinking a roast done your way, the soul way?
That's a really good question, because I am not a big fan of these bitter coffees. I really like the lighter floral note because that represents the real DNA of the coffee. I think, in the earlier days, it's all about darker roast, more like heavy body, the bitterness, which is what was quite popular. But I feel like we are now moving into like the fourth wave of coffee, which is more the lighter notes of coffee, really representing the environment where the coffee grew in and really the characteristics of the coffee. So I like the lighter roast. So I feel like my touch has been to bring that roast curves all towards the lighter side and really bring out the natural taste of the bean, regardless of whatever blend that we produce, whatever roast we produce. So I'm trying to stay away from the darker beyond second crack kind of profile. We're talking it like first crack and then a few minutes of development time.
After roasting comes cupping. So what does that session look like here? Who is involved? What are you tasting for?
So cupping really is the key protocol to ensure consistency in every batch. So what that involves is a team of myself, a head of quality, and a head of roasting, that's Chatura and Prem. So the three of us will carry out the cupping for every single batch that's roasted at the roastery. And that really gives us parameters in terms of like how each batch is consistent, and also like making sure that our targets for that profile is met. So that involves making sure you standardize the weight, the temperature, the brew time, and also we are measuring things like color of the coffee as well. And then you cup and taste each of those batches based on an SCA standard. So we'll check the body, the acidity, the sweetness, the aroma, all the parameters, we rank it against that and we score it. So if it falls below a score of 80, then it's not specialty, so then it is rejected. So that's how we make sure coffee is consistently good.
Do you remember a moment during cupping where something unexpected happened? A new flavor, a surprising result or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So we get coffees from across Sri Lanka. So from Kotmale, from Ala, from Bandaravela, Kandy, Norelia, you name it. So from Kotmale region, we got a really exciting coffee. It was like a natural processed coffee, a single lot. And the score on that, I remember close was 87, 88, which is phenomenal. And the taste notes was really, really unique. And that really surprised us. That Sri Lankan coffee can be this phenomenal. That was good.
How do you translate a cupping result into a decision, where a bean becomes smooth, indulgent, intense, or something more exclusive, limited edition lots?
Cupping score does not determine those blends. Those blends are really based on like how you use the coffee. For example, smooth is meant for like a filter coffee, and indulgence and intense is for an espresso based coffee. So that's really the roasting profile and the bean blend catered towards the usage of coffee in those two aspects. The cupping score determines what the quality of the coffee. So like I said, if the coffee cupping score is below 80, then it does not meet our specialty standard, and then you have to reject that batch. So that really determines the consistency. And then if coffee is scoring very high, then you put it onto like unique and micro lots or nano lots or specific blends that we put it into. So that's how you can determine it.
You often mention cup scores and standards. How do frameworks like SCA guide you without limiting your creativity?
an interesting question. So SCA gives you a rough guideline in terms of what parameters you should measure the coffee against, and that's a global standard, and that's been tried and tested and evolved across the years, and that gives you a really good baseline on judging your coffee. But that is not the end all. There are other areas that we look at. For example, for Sri Lankan coffee, there's some unique parameters that we feel really represents coffee, and our tastes are quite unique than the coffees across the world. So we have some unique parameters we built up internally across the years to help us judge better those coffees. So we use SCA as a baseline, but that's not the 100%. So we add our own kind of measuring parameters on top of the SCA standards. So that gives a better overall perspective of what our coffee is about.
There's a lot of technology here, sensors, data, profiles, but where does the human element still lead the way here?
End of the day, the cupping is really the final kind of the gateway between approving or rejecting coffee. So regardless of all the data in play, if the taste during the cupping session is not up to standard and does not match our profile or our blend, it's rejected. So the human element is the final decision maker in the entire sequence of it. But until then, we have a lot of data to help support the decision making. But the final taste and human decision is the final decision maker in this curve.
How do you make sure each roast reflects the story of where the bean came from, the region, farmer, the climate?
It's a good question. So over the years, we understood certain coffees from certain regions have some unique characteristics. For example, we feel like the coffee from Balimada has a bit of the more chocolatey, slightly on the heavier body kind of characteristic, and from Kotmale we're getting a little more of the fruity, nutty kind of profiles we're getting because of the soil, the temperature, the elevation, the climatic conditions. So we know coffee from different regions has some unique characteristics. So we have now matched those regions to certain blends. For example, if we want for smooth, we want something which is floral and light. So we'll source those coffees from those regions, allocate it for those blends. And for espresso, we'll allocate from like Balimada, we want a more heavier body, more chocolatey note. So that's how we'll allocate the blends based on the region through our experience of, it's our 11th year in the business, over a decade. So we really understand how Sri Lankan coffee sits across the taste parameters.
If a barista halfway across the world brews this coffee, what do you hope they feel or say after their first sip?
I would love for them to say like, wow, like to be surprised at the unique taste notes that we are providing compared to all the coffees across the world. Because coffees across the world has been in the business for a while, like with Ethiopian coffee or Costa Rican, but Sri Lankan coffee has not been in the global market or the global playing field since before the coffee rust happened. So with this unique taste profile coming to the market with the new processing standards and roasting standards, it really should be something which really wows the baristas across the world. That's what I would hope for them to kind of feel like it's a new gen of coffee, something very surprising and impressive.
I would like to know, what does this roasting mean to you? Not as a profession, but as a part of your identity.
I feel like roasting is that tool which really helps me express the best of what Sri Lankan coffee can be, and my whole ideology has been to take Sri Lankan coffee to that global standard, and using our roasting knowledge and experience and the tools in hand, it helps us take this to the global standard and express the talent that we have in Sri Lanka. So that's how I kind of feel what roasting is about.
If someone asked what makes Soul Coffee Roasters different, what would you say? Not from a sales point of view, but from your heart.
I feel the truly unique part of us is the fact that we are a farm to cup roastery, and that's not something that the others cannot kind of say. We understand where the coffee is grown, which farmer grew the coffee, where it's processed. Every single batch we have transparency from, all the from farm to cup. So we source it, we hand sort it, we are roasting it, and we also then supply directly to the customers using our coffee. So we understand the full vertical end to end. So we really want to create that value from every single stakeholder in that value chain. So that's really something unique about Soul Roaster. So if any customer of us wants to understand where the coffee came from, where it's roasted, where it's going to, so the entire value chain is transparent. So that's really the uniqueness that we provide to the table, and that's part of our ethos of being sustainable and ethical.
So, what's your thought about the current coffee industry in Sri Lanka? What was it before, how it's going on, and what's your predictions?
I think Sri Lankan coffee in the last decade has come a long way in terms of quality. The initial stage, I would not say we were anywhere close to specialty, but now we really have entered the specialty phase. But we still lack the volume and consistency and number of players who are growing it and processing it. So that's really where I think the need is. But I feel the quality standard has come a long way, and personally, it's quite satisfying to see the more attention and number of new entrants into the market. I think so. That's in a positive kind of wave. I think it will go to a whole different standard in the next decade to come.
And lastly, what's the one thing people never see in this process but should?
I think from a consumer perspective, they should really understand where this coffee is from and the actual genuineness of the coffee, the reality of it. All coffees look alike, but there's a whole story behind each bean. And people should really demand to find out where is it actually from, this coffee. Is it really Sri Lankan? Is it really from this region? Is it really representing what it's claiming to be? And people should be more curious and push wherever you're drinking coffee to really find out about this bean. And that's something that I feel should come into the picture.
What will be your advice to someone who is just getting into this industry? So, what will be your advice?
I would say start from the back and work towards the front, because I think not many people are paying attention to the harder part, which is the sourcing and the growing and the taking care of the plants and those cherries being processed to bean, and there's not enough people in the back end of the coffee supply chain. Most are in the front of it, but there's a big shortage of coffee, so there's a lot of opportunity also in the back end. So I would say if someone's starting out, start your journey from the back and work towards the front.